Close your eyes for a moment and take a slow, deep breath. Feel the gentle rhythm of your chest rising and falling, as if the world itself is breathing with you. Imagine a soft, golden light spreading from the top of your head, flowing down your shoulders, through your arms, and filling every corner of your body with warmth and calm. Let all the tension in your muscles melt away, as if it's being carried off by a soft, invisible breeze. Each breath takes you deeper into a peaceful state, like floating slowly down a serene river, your mind calm, your body weightless, and your thoughts drifting gently like clouds across a clear sky. In this calm, safe space, your imagination awakens, ready to take you on a journey far into the past, to a time long before our modern world, to the cradle of one of humanity's earliest great civilizations. Long before the rise of bustling cities in Egypt or Mesopotamia, when the world was still a patchwork of forests, rivers, and wide open plains, a remarkable civilization quietly flourished along the fertile plains of the Indus River. This civilization, known today as the Indus Valley Civilization or Harappan Civilization, stretched across what is now modern-day Pakistan and northwest India. It existed over 4,000 years ago, around 3,300 to 1300 BCE, a period so distant that imagining it requires letting go of modern concepts of technology, government, and society. Yet, even so, the people who lived there developed a society that in many ways rivaled those of the ancient Egyptians and Mesopotamians in complexity, sophistication, and organization. Unlike the towering pyramids or the royal palaces of Egypt, the Indus people left behind no monuments of stone designed to awe visitors. Yet their cities themselves were masterpieces of planning, craftsmanship, and ingenuity, speaking volumes about the way they lived, thought, and saw their world. The land along the Indus River provided a fertile foundation for this remarkable civilization. The river itself, wide and powerful, meandered across plains rich with nutrient-laden soil deposited by millennia of annual floods. These floods, though unpredictable, brought life to the land, making it possible to cultivate crops in abundance. Wheat and barley formed the staple diet, while peas, lentils, and sesame supplemented their meals. Evidence suggests that they also practiced early forms of irrigation and water management, harnessing the river's flow to sustain agriculture even in times of lesser rainfall. Imagine the first farmers in this land, walking through the moist soil at dawn, tending small fields, carrying baskets of freshly harvested grains, the air filled with the soft calls of birds and the hum of a world slowly waking up. Their labor was quiet but foundational, setting the stage for the emergence of cities that would become marvels of urban planning. Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, two of the most famous sites of this civilization, offer a glimpse into this ancient urban world. Walking through these cities, one would be struck by the uniformity of the streets, laid out in a precise grid pattern, as if some unseen hand had drawn them with careful attention. Homes were built with standardized baked bricks, each nearly identical, suggesting an organized system of production and an understanding of architecture that was far ahead of its time. These houses were more than simple shelters. They often included private wells and bathrooms, connected to an intricate drainage system that allowed wastewater to flow away from homes and streets. It is remarkable to think that over 4,000 years ago, people lived in cities with sanitation infrastructure, an understanding of hygiene, and attention to urban planning that would not be matched in many parts of the world for millennia. But the Indus people were more than just skilled builders. They were also artisans and traders. Evidence of finely crafted jewelry, seals engraved with animals and symbols, and pottery painted with intricate designs points to a society that valued beauty and symbolism as much as practicality. These seals, often carved from steatite and used in trade, contained symbols that formed what we now call the Indus script. Though undeciphered, These symbols suggest a sophisticated system of communication and record-keeping, hinting at the possibility of a shared language, administrative organization, or spiritual beliefs. Trade extended beyond the Indus Valley itself. Materials like lapis lazuli from Afghanistan and seashells from coastal regions show that the Indus people were connected to a wider network, exchanging goods, ideas, and techniques across vast distances, long before modern roads or ships. The people of the Indus Valley also exhibited an extraordinary sense of social organization. While much remains unknown, the uniformity of city layouts, standardized weights and measures, and consistent construction techniques across different cities suggest centralized planning and cooperation. Life here was structured, yet flexible enough to allow individual artisans, traders, and farmers to thrive. Religion and spirituality likely played a role, though the details are largely a mystery. Figurines, pottery, and seals hint at worship of fertility deities, nature spirits, and possibly proto-Shiva figures, blending daily life with ritual and belief. Life would have been a rhythm of work and ritual, growth and reflection, harvest and celebration, with communities bound together by shared labor, culture, and a sense of belonging. As night descends over the Indus plains, imagine the glow of lamps flickering in homes, the quiet murmur of families sharing stories and meals, the soft footsteps of traders carrying goods to market. The river glistens under the moon, a mirror to the stars above, reflecting a world at once familiar and foreign. This civilization, though long vanished from the face of the earth, whispers through time in the bricks of its cities, the symbols on its seals, and the silent testimony of its waterways. The Indus Valley Civilization is a story of human ingenuity, resilience, and the enduring drive to build, connect, and thrive in harmony with the natural world. As the soft glow of the Indus River's waters reflects the rising sun, life in this ancient land begins to hum with quiet purpose. Beyond the major urban centers of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, smaller settlements spread across the plains, each a living testament to human ingenuity and cooperation. These communities, often overlooked in popular imagination, were crucial to the civilization's strength, serving as hubs of agriculture, craft, and trade. Imagine clusters of homes made from sun-dried bricks, clustered around communal wells, with narrow pathways winding between them. Farmers rise early, carrying baskets of ripening grain, tending fields that shimmer in shades of green and gold, while shepherds guide flocks of goats and sheep across the pastures. The rhythm of life is steady, punctuated by the quiet rituals of daily existence and the seasonal pulse of sowing and harvest. The Indus people were deeply attuned to their environment. They understood the river's moods, the monsoon's arrival, and the cycles of the seasons, aligning their agricultural practices with these natural patterns. By observing the rise and fall of the Indus waters, they could predict flooding and plan their planting accordingly, demonstrating an intuitive understanding of ecology and risk management. Fields were meticulously maintained, using techniques that minimized soil exhaustion, and granaries ensured that surplus harvests could be stored for leaner times. The landscape itself was a partner in their survival, shaping the way settlements were laid out and the flow of goods, people, and ideas across the plains. Waterways, natural levees, and floodplains became the arteries of civilization, guiding development and connecting distant communities in ways that are remarkable considering the era. Trade played a central role in the lives of the Indus people, weaving a network that extended far beyond their immediate environment. Alongside agricultural prosperity, artisans produced goods that were both functional and beautiful: ceramics, beads, tools, and intricate jewelry that reflected a keen eye for detail and aesthetics. These items were exchanged locally and over long distances, reaching Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and the Arabian Peninsula. Seals, small but meticulously engraved, served as markers of ownership, trade, and identity. They often depicted animals, such as elephants, tigers, and bulls, alongside abstract symbols that remain undeciphered to this day. Imagine traders loading camel caravans with jars of grain, rolls of textiles, and strings of beads, traveling along dusty trails, the calls of merchants echoing as deals are struck, each journey a bridge between communities separated by hundreds of miles. Social life in the Indus Valley was complex, yet it seemed to avoid the extremes of rigid hierarchy found in other ancient civilizations. While some scholars speculate that city planners or councils may have guided construction and resource allocation, there is little evidence of kings, palaces, or monumental tombs. Instead, society appears to have functioned through shared norms, cooperation, and organized civic planning. Streets were laid out in grids, and public works such as wells, drainage systems, and granaries reflect a collective effort that benefited entire communities. The absence of overt displays of power, like pyramids or royal statues, suggests that the Indus people may have valued communal stability, trade, and the smooth functioning of urban life over personal prestige. Imagine walking down a broad, straight street, lined with well-constructed homes, bustling with markets, and punctuated by public squares where neighbors gather. This was a civilization that thrived on coordination and subtle, elegant social engineering. The spiritual and cultural lives of the Indus people were intertwined with their surroundings, and evidence of ritual practices hints at their beliefs and priorities. Small terracotta figurines, some depicting women with exaggerated features, suggest a focus on fertility, life, and renewal. Other artifacts show animals, symbols, and possibly deities, though the exact meanings remain a mystery. Daily life likely involved both work and ritual, with ceremonies connected to agriculture, trade, and perhaps even early forms of civic governance. The people of the Indus Valley seem to live in a world where utility and beauty, survival and celebration were intertwined. Imagine a family kneeling in the soft morning light, arranging offerings of grain, flowers, or small figurines, blending gratitude and hope into routines that connected them with both the land and each other. Craftsmanship reached astonishing heights in these communities. Artisans mastered techniques that would be considered advanced even centuries later. Beads made from semi-precious stones were drilled with precision, pottery was fired to perfection, and bronze tools and weapons were carefully cast. Terracotta models of animals, carts, and even toys reveal an attention to detail that combines practical knowledge with artistic expression. Daily life was enriched not only by survival, but by the aesthetic and symbolic significance of objects around them. Imagine children playing with miniature clay carts, the clatter of pottery in workshops, and the rhythmic hammering of bronze artisans, each sound contributing to the living pulse of the city. This integration of craft, work, and play is a vivid reminder that the Indus Valley was not only a center of survival, but of human creativity and culture. Agriculture, trade, and craftsmanship created interdependent networks that bound the civilization together. Yet the Indus people were also innovators in the practical sciences. They developed standardized weights and measures, allowing trade to flourish with fairness and efficiency. Their drainage systems, remarkably sophisticated, channeled wastewater away from homes and streets, protecting public health and reducing the risks of disease. Urban planning principles ensured that living spaces were functional, hygienic, and aesthetically pleasing, with homes designed for ventilation, light, and comfort. Imagine an engineer carefully measuring a street, a mason selecting bricks of exact dimensions, and a council of neighbors coordinating the repair of communal wells. These practical achievements reflect a society where knowledge, observation, and foresight were applied to everyday life in ways that allowed cities to flourish for centuries. Education and knowledge were likely woven into daily life, though direct evidence is scarce. The uniformity of artifacts and inscriptions across distant sites suggests shared understanding, whether transmitted through apprenticeships, oral tradition, or communal teaching. Children would have grown up observing skilled artisans, farmers, and traders, learning not only techniques, but also the subtle rules of social conduct and cooperation. Religion, ritual, and practical skills were probably integrated, shaping individuals who could contribute to society while understanding their place in a larger network of human endeavor. Imagine a young apprentice learning to carve a seal, a child helping in the fields, and the subtle passing of wisdom from parent to child, from master to student, a quiet thread connecting generations across centuries. The Indus Valley Civilization thrived in a delicate balance with its environment. Rivers, rainfall, and soil fertility dictated the rhythm of life, while human ingenuity maximized the productivity of the land. Settlements expanded organically, shaped by both necessity and opportunity, adapting to floods, droughts, and other natural challenges. The people developed techniques to store water, manage waste, and construct buildings resilient to environmental stresses. This harmonious relationship with nature allowed cities to persist and grow, nurturing a civilization that, though largely forgotten for millennia, offers enduring lessons in sustainability, foresight, and human cooperation. Imagine walking along a levee, listening to the murmur of water, feeling the soil beneath your feet, and sensing the careful, mindful steps of a society attuned to the world around it. Trade, agriculture, craftsmanship, urban planning, and social cohesion together created a civilization whose influence extended far beyond its physical borders. Goods, ideas, and culture traveled along rivers and overland routes, connecting distant communities in a web of interdependence and shared knowledge. The Indus people demonstrated that human ingenuity could flourish not only in monumental displays of power, but also in subtle, practical systems that balanced daily life, aesthetics, and survival. Their cities, now silent ruins, were once vibrant centers of activity, learning, and cultural exchange, where the pulse of human civilization beat steadily, quietly, and with remarkable sophistication. As the sun rises higher over the vast plains of the Indus, the cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro emerge as remarkable centers of human ingenuity and organization. Imagine walking along wide, straight streets paved with carefully laid bricks, flanked by sturdy houses that are surprisingly uniform in size and design. This uniformity hints at meticulous planning, perhaps guided by civic councils or local authorities, though no grand kings or palaces dominate the skyline. Each home, whether modest or larger, often includes private wells, bathrooms, and courtyards, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of hygiene and domestic comfort. The sheer regularity of construction, down to the precise dimensions of the bricks, reveals a civilization deeply committed to order, durability, and functional beauty. It is as if each brick, carefully molded and fired, carries the quiet testimony of thousands of hands working in harmony. Mohenjo-daro, one of the largest cities of the Indus Valley Civilization, rises like a living testament to this foresight. Its streets form a perfect grid, intersecting at right angles, creating blocks that house both residential and public structures. The city is divided into sectors, each with distinct purposes: living quarters, workshops, marketplaces, and ceremonial spaces. The Great Bath, a monumental structure built from carefully laid bricks, suggests ritual or communal significance. Water was central to the spiritual and practical life of the Indus people, and the bath may have served ceremonial purposes, perhaps cleansing, renewal, or religious observance, reflecting a sophisticated connection between water, society, and spirituality. Imagine walking down one of Mohenjo-daro's main streets. The soft clatter of pottery, the hum of conversations, and the distant murmur of flowing water from the Great Bath, creating a soundscape both ordinary and extraordinary, alive with the rhythms of urban life. Harappa, another major city, complements Mohenjo-Daro with its own distinctive features. Large granaries dominate the landscape, storing surplus grain to sustain the population through lean periods. The streets are meticulously planned, with drainage channels running alongside homes and marketplaces, directing wastewater away and maintaining cleanliness. The presence of uniform weights and measures across Harappa indicates an organized system of trade and commerce, enabling fair exchange and efficient market regulation. Imagine artisans weighing grains and goods on standardized scales, merchants negotiating trade across bustling squares, and neighbors gathering in courtyards to share news and food. These activities, mundane in their rhythm, reflect a society deeply attuned to organization, fairness, and civic responsibility. Daily life in these cities is vibrant and varied. Farmers, traders, and artisans work in concert, sustaining the urban ecosystem. Children grow up amid a blend of work and play, learning practical skills from their elders while absorbing the social norms and shared knowledge that bind the community. Imagine young hands shaping clay pots, threading beads for jewelry, or helping tend small gardens. The lessons of survival, craft, and cooperation pass down through generations. Artisans create tools, ornaments, and ritual objects with remarkable skill, while traders connect the city to distant lands, exchanging goods, materials, and ideas across vast distances. Every individual, from the smallest child to the most skilled craftsman, contributes to the living heartbeat of the city. Trade networks of the Indus Valley Civilization extend far beyond the plains themselves. Lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, carnelian from central India, and seashells from coastal regions find their way into the bustling markets of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. These goods are not merely commodities. They carry stories, techniques, and cultural exchange. Merchants navigating rivers and desert routes facilitate interactions with distant civilizations, including Mesopotamia, where Indus seals have been discovered, bearing witness to early global trade connections. Imagine caravans moving slowly across the landscape, laden with beads, pottery, and textiles, the rhythmic clatter of hooves and wheels punctuating the vast silence of the plains. Trade here is not just economic. It is a conduit for culture, knowledge, and shared human experience. Art and craftsmanship flourish alongside practical activity. Terracotta figurines, intricately carved seals, and jewelry made from semi-precious stones reflect a civilization that values beauty, symbolism, and technical mastery. Seals often depict animals like elephants, tigers, and bulls, along with abstract symbols that remain undeciphered, suggesting a rich symbolic or religious language. Imagine an artisan carefully carving a tiny seal, each detail precise, each line deliberate, knowing that this object will travel far from its origin, communicating identity, ownership, and perhaps belief. Even mundane objects, pots, tools, and utensils bear the imprint of aesthetic sensibility, blending function with elegance. Daily life, then, is suffused not only with survival and labor, but with art, imagination, and cultural expression. The Indus people's approach to governance and civic order is equally remarkable. Though no evidence exists of kings or dynasties in the grand, monumental sense, the cities themselves reflect organization, cooperation, and oversight. Streets are laid in grids, public wells and baths are maintained, and drainage systems are constructed with precision. Such achievements suggest a society capable of planning on a large scale, coordinating labor, and enforcing standards. Imagine a civic council or community leaders overseeing construction, trade, and maintenance, ensuring that the city functions smoothly without the need for overt displays of authoritarian power. This subtle, efficient system contrasts with contemporary civilizations that often relied on the grandeur of palaces, temples, and rulers to demonstrate control, highlighting the uniqueness of Indus urban culture. Religious and spiritual life permeates the daily routines of the Indus people. Terracotta figurines of women with exaggerated features suggest a focus on fertility, while depictions of animals, such as bulls and elephants, may have held symbolic or religious significance. Rituals likely accompanied agricultural cycles, trade activities, and communal gatherings, reinforcing social cohesion and collective identity. Imagine a family offering grains, flowers, or small figurines to deities or spirits, blending devotion with gratitude for the land, the river, and the interconnected community. In such practices, spirituality is not confined to grand temples or monumental displays. It is woven seamlessly into daily life, guiding ethics, behavior, and social bonds. Water, the lifeblood of the civilization, shapes both the practical and spiritual dimensions of existence. Wells, baths, and canals provide sustenance and hygiene, while the river itself is revered and relied upon. Floods, while potentially destructive, are anticipated, managed, and harnessed to fertilize fields, illustrating the Indus people's intimate knowledge of natural cycles. Imagine the flow of the river, powerful yet predictable, guiding planting seasons, trade routes, and urban layouts. Life here is an intricate balance of respect for nature's rhythms and human ingenuity in harnessing them, a delicate dance that sustains generations of prosperity and cultural richness. Education and knowledge transfer occur naturally within this environment. Skills, social norms, and cultural values are passed from parent to child, artisan to apprentice, neighbor to neighbor. Though the exact mechanisms are lost to history, the consistency of artifacts, weights, and city layouts across vast distances suggests shared knowledge and coordinated learning. Children grow up immersed in the world of craft, trade, and social cooperation, absorbing not just practical skills, but also the subtle understanding of civic responsibility and communal harmony. Imagine a young child helping an elder in the marketplace, learning the balance of fairness and skill, or observing a craftsman shaping a seal, internalizing techniques and cultural meanings that will guide them in adulthood. The civilization's achievements are not merely functional, but reflect a profound understanding of human needs and social organization. Granaries, wells, and drainage systems demonstrate foresight and concern for collective welfare. Streets, homes, and public spaces reveal an appreciation for order, aesthetics, and comfort. Trade networks extend opportunity and connection, while craft and art imbue daily life with beauty and meaning. Religion and ritual provide ethical frameworks and social cohesion, while education ensures continuity across generations. Imagine the quiet pride of a society capable of integrating these diverse elements seamlessly, producing cities that are both practical and inspiring, resilient and refined, alive with the pulse of human endeavor. Even as we walk through the streets of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro in our imagination, we can sense the hum of life that once filled these spaces. Merchants, artisans, farmers, and children all play their parts in a complex, interwoven social and economic network. Goods flow from one city to another, ideas and techniques spread through generations, and daily routines are balanced with ritual, art, and civic participation. This civilization, though long vanished, speaks across time, offering a model of urban planning, social cooperation, and cultural sophistication that continues to fascinate and inspire. The Indus Valley Civilization is not merely a chapter in history, it is a vivid testament to humanity's capacity for order, creativity, and resilience in harmony with the natural world. As the cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro thrived, a quieter, more mysterious aspect of the Indus Valley Civilization emerged in the intricate marks left on clay and stone, the Indus script. Imagine artisans delicately carving tiny symbols onto seals, each one precise, purposeful, yet still shrouded in mystery. Despite decades of research, the script remains undeciphered, leaving us with tantalizing glimpses of a complex system of communication. These seals were likely used in trade, administration, and perhaps even ritual, acting as a personal signature, a merchant's mark, or a token of spiritual significance. Each symbol carries the weight of human thought, the reflection of a mind capable of abstract representation. Yet the exact meaning slips through the fingers of modern understanding like grains of sand along the riverbank. Seals themselves were often adorned with animals, tigers, elephants, unicorn-like creatures, and bulls, sometimes paired with abstract symbols. Imagine a merchant pressing a seal onto wet clay before sending goods down the river or across the desert, leaving behind an imprint that communicates identity, origin, and possibly trust. The imagery is rich with symbolism, reflecting not only the natural world surrounding the Indus people, but also their spiritual and cultural ideals. Animals were not just physical beings, they were embodiments of strength, fertility, and protection. The repeated use of certain motifs hints at shared beliefs and values, forming a subtle, silent language of art and devotion that traveled alongside the tangible goods being traded. Religious life in the Indus Valley, though largely speculative, reveals a civilization attuned to the cycles of nature, fertility, and human survival. Terracotta figurines of women with exaggerated hips and breasts suggest the veneration of fertility, life, and nurturing forces. Imagine families placing small figurines in their homes, offering prayers for healthy children, abundant crops, or protection from misfortune. Other figurines and artifacts depict animals or hybrid creatures, blending reality and imagination, the sacred and the mundane. These objects may have been used in rituals or as talismans, embodying protective or auspicious qualities in the daily lives of ordinary people. Life in the Indus Valley was thus not only practical and social, but also deeply symbolic, connecting the material with the spiritual through everyday acts of devotion. The Indus people also demonstrated a remarkable awareness of hygiene and health, reflected in their urban infrastructure. Houses were equipped with private bathrooms, connected to covered drains that carried wastewater safely away from living areas. Imagine walking through these streets, the subtle trickle of water flowing beneath stone slabs, maintaining cleanliness and public health without the pomp of grand aqueducts or monumental plumbing systems. This attention to sanitation indicates not only technical skill, but also a cultural understanding of cleanliness as a communal responsibility. The rhythm of life, then, is both practical and ethical, as residents navigate streets designed for order, safety, and comfort, participating in a society where personal and public welfare are intertwined, craftsmanship intertwined with daily and spiritual life. Jewelry, pottery, and tools were not merely functional, they were expressions of identity, skill, and aesthetic sensibility. Beads made from carnelian or semi-precious stones were strung into necklaces that carried beauty, status, and possibly spiritual significance. Pottery was shaped with precision, painted with intricate patterns, and fired to last, blending utility with elegance. Imagine an artisan sitting by the flickering light of a clay oven, carefully shaping each item, knowing it will travel to distant markets or be placed on a household altar. Craft in the Indus Valley was a dialogue between the physical and symbolic, the practical and the transcendent, weaving the tangible and intangible threads of culture into daily existence. Trade, both local and long distance, reinforced the symbolic world of the Indus Valley. Objects carried meaning beyond mere function, and the movement of goods facilitated the exchange of ideas and beliefs. Imagine a trader arriving from a distant settlement, bearing seals carved with new motifs, beads of unfamiliar stone, or figurines shaped with slightly different proportions. Each item introduces novelty, inspiring new interpretations of symbols, stories, and rituals. In this way, commerce was more than economic. It was a medium for cultural transmission, a network not only of goods but of shared imagination, values, and belief. The Indus civilization thrived in this intricate balance between material abundance and symbolic resonance, practical necessity, and imaginative expression. Education and knowledge transfer were embedded in this symbolic social and material network. Children observed the carving of seals, the shaping of clay, the tending of gardens, and the handling of trade goods, learning skills, ethics and cultural codes simultaneously. Apprenticeships in workshops, guidance from elders, and communal participation in daily and ritual life created an immersive system of education without formal schools. Imagine a young apprentice tracing the curves of a freshly carved seal under the watchful eye of a master, absorbing not only technique but also the symbolic meaning behind the imagery, internalizing lessons about trade, communication, and spirituality. Knowledge in the Indus Valley was lived and experienced, flowing naturally through generations like water through the river's channels. Even daily domestic life carried layers of symbolic and cultural significance. Courtyards, wells, and storage spaces were organized not only for convenience, but for ritual observance and social interaction. Meals might include offerings to deities or ancestors, and the arrangement of objects within homes reflected order, respect, and an understanding of harmony between the human and natural worlds. Imagine families gathering at dusk, sharing grain and vegetables harvested from nearby fields, lighting lamps or incense, and placing small figurines or symbols in quiet corners to ensure protection and prosperity. Life in the Indus Valley blended the tangible and intangible seamlessly, creating a culture where work, worship, and aesthetic appreciation coexisted naturally, guiding daily routines and communal life. The Indus script, still undeciphered, continues to spark curiosity about governance, trade, and social interaction. Though we may not fully understand the symbols, their very existence indicates literacy, communication, and record-keeping that was both practical and symbolic. Imagine merchants stamping seals on bundles of goods to mark ownership or authenticity, or priests and civic leaders using symbols to convey instructions, rules, or prayers. This system, invisible to us in its meaning but tangible in its physical traces, suggests a civilization where thought, art, and administration were interwoven, each supporting the other in sustaining urban life, trade networks, and cultural cohesion. As the sun sets over the Indus plains, the flow of water mirrors the flow of ideas, symbols, and daily life. Every carved seal, every clay figurine, every meticulously baked brick carries a story, a lesson, a reflection of human ingenuity, creativity, and belief. Life here is measured not only by the passage of days, but by the rhythm of trade, the cycles of agriculture, the flow of water through channels and drains, and the quiet persistence of symbolic thought. Imagine the soft glow of lamps in homes, the gentle clink of tools in workshops, and the distant murmur of conversations in streets perfectly aligned by centuries of careful planning. In this environment, human creativity and social organization merge seamlessly, producing a civilization that, even in its mysteries, speaks eloquently across the millennia. As dawn stretches across the Indus plains, the fields awaken with quiet life. The civilization that flourished here depended intimately on the land and the river, drawing sustenance from the fertile floodplains that stretched as far as the eye could see. Imagine early farmers stepping into the soft, damp soil at sunrise, baskets in hand, carefully tending to rows of wheat and barley, their fingers brushing against the fresh green shoots. Agriculture was the backbone of the Indus Valley Civilization, sustaining not only daily life, but enabling urban development, trade, and specialization of crafts. The people understood the cycles of nature, the arrival of the monsoon, the gradual retreat of floodwaters, and the delicate timing needed to plant and harvest crops. In this understanding, they mastered the rhythm of survival and prosperity, turning the unpredictable flow of the river into a steady pulse of life. Irrigation and water management were integral to this harmony between humans and nature. Canals and channels, carefully dug and maintained, guided water from rivers to fields, ensuring crops received nourishment even during periods of low rainfall. Wells were strategically dug to provide fresh water to households and public spaces, while larger reservoirs helped sustain communities during drier months. Imagine villagers walking alongside these channels, observing the subtle rise and fall of water levels, adjusting gates or scooping water into small irrigation streams. Such management required foresight, coordination, and a profound respect for the natural forces that could both sustain and destroy. Water was not merely a resource. It was a lifeline, a medium of daily ritual, and a symbol of the civilization's delicate balance with the environment. The diet of the Indus people reflected the abundance and diversity of the land they cultivated. Staples like wheat and barley formed the foundation of meals, while lentils, peas, and other pulses supplemented nutrition. Oilseeds such as sesame provided essential fats, while fruits and vegetables added flavor, vitamins, and variety. Imagine families sharing meals in the cool courtyards of their homes, steam rising from freshly cooked grains and vegetables, while the aroma of roasted spices fills the air. Animal products, including dairy from cattle, goats, and sheep, enriched the diet, and occasional fish or fowl from nearby rivers and wetlands provided protein. Their food was both sustenance and a reflection of resourcefulness, carefully aligned with the seasons and the flow of water that nurtured the fields. Beyond the cultivation of crops, the Indus people excelled in storage and preservation. Granaries, constructed with precision and foresight, allowed communities to store surplus grain and protect it from moisture, pests, and spoilage. Imagine massive warehouses with thick walls, neatly stacked sacks of grain waiting for the lean seasons, overseen by careful stewards ensuring that every measure is accounted for. Such infrastructure provided stability, enabled trade, and fostered resilience against unpredictable natural events, such as floods or droughts. It is remarkable to consider that thousands of years ago, people developed such sophisticated systems for safeguarding food, combining practical engineering with an understanding of community needs and long-term planning. The relationship of the Indus people with the river itself was profound and multifaceted. The Indus River was a source of life, transportation, and spiritual reflection. Its seasonal floods brought fertile silt that enriched the soil, but required careful preparation and adaptability from the people. Houses and streets were constructed with this natural rhythm in mind, often elevated or reinforced to withstand potential inundation. Canals, levees, and reservoirs reflected a keen understanding of hydrology, allowing the civilization to harness the river's power without succumbing to its dangers. Imagine walking along a levee at sunrise, listening to the gentle rush of water, feeling the soft, moist earth beneath your feet, and sensing the quiet intelligence of a society attuned to the lifeblood of its land. Agricultural practices extended beyond basic sustenance into early forms of crop rotation and land management. Fields were carefully monitored for soil health, water distribution, and pest control, reflecting an intuitive understanding of ecological balance. Farmers observed the interplay of sun, rain, and soil, adjusting planting and harvesting schedules to maximize yield while minimizing the risk of depletion. Imagine a family walking through a patchwork of fields, noting where the soil is richest, where water has pooled, and where the next season's crops will thrive. This attention to detail ensured that the civilization could support not only its population, but also its burgeoning cities, workshops, and trade networks. Trade, both local and distant, further connected the Indus people to their environment. Agricultural surplus became the basis for economic exchange, enabling artisans to specialize in crafting pottery, jewelry, and tools. Imagine a caravan leaving a small village, carrying sacks of grain and pulses, traveling down river routes or across plains to reach bustling urban centers like Mohenjo-Daro. Alongside commodities, knowledge and cultural practices flowed as well, spreading techniques of cultivation, craftsmanship, and social organization. The environment shaped these interactions, as rivers, plains, and natural resources dictated the routes of trade, the location of settlements, and the rhythms of everyday life. Fisheries and riverine resources complemented agricultural activities. Rivers and wetlands teemed with fish, mollusks, and aquatic plants, providing dietary diversity and supplemental income. Fishing required skill and knowledge of local ecosystems, using nets, traps, or small boats, demonstrating ingenuity and an intimate understanding of the natural world. Imagine villagers casting nets into glimmering waters at dawn, the first light dancing across the ripples, while children gather reeds or shells along the riverbank. The environment is both provider and teacher, shaping daily practices, sustaining life, and inspiring cultural expression. The Indus people also practiced early forms of animal husbandry, integrating livestock into agricultural and domestic life. Cattle, goats, sheep, and buffalo provided milk, meat, and hides, while oxen and buffalo were used in plowing and transportation. The movement and care of animals were coordinated carefully, reflecting both practical knowledge and social cooperation. Imagine herders guiding flocks through fields, ensuring their safety while tending crops, integrating human and animal labor into a harmonious rhythm of work. This interdependence between humans, animals, and land created a resilient and adaptive society, capable of weathering environmental challenges and sustaining cultural complexity over centuries. Even in domestic spaces, water, food, and environmental awareness shaped daily routines. Courtyards, wells, and kitchens were designed with both utility and comfort in mind. Families managed resources carefully, storing water, cooking efficiently, and maintaining cleanliness to protect health. Meals, often shared communally, were a reflection of abundance, ritual, and social cohesion, blending nourishment with culture. Imagine the gentle hum of conversation as food is prepared, the aroma of grains and pulses mixing with smoke from cooking fires, and the soothing rhythm of water drawn from wells or canals, sustaining life and comfort in equal measure. The integration of agriculture, water management, and urban life demonstrates the Indus people's extraordinary understanding of sustainability. Their cities, farms, and workshops were interdependent, designed to optimize resources while maintaining social stability and cultural richness. Imagine the quiet satisfaction of a society that can anticipate floods, preserve food, manage water, and cultivate land effectively, all while supporting thriving cities and complex trade networks. The Indus Valley Civilization stands as a testament to the delicate balance of human ingenuity and environmental harmony, a model of how civilizations can flourish by observing, understanding, and respecting the natural world. Beyond the fertile fields and flowing rivers, the Indus Valley Civilization thrived through its extraordinary mastery of craft and technology. The people here were not only farmers and traders, they were artisans, engineers, and innovators who transformed raw materials into objects of beauty, utility, and lasting value. Imagine workshops buzzing with activity, where skilled hands shape bronze tools, carve intricate seals, or string delicate beads. Each item tells a story of human ingenuity, where precision, observation, and creativity intersect. In these workshops, techniques are passed down from master to apprentice, knowledge preserved and refined with each generation. The rhythm of hammers, the heat of kilns, and the delicate carving of tiny motifs all contribute to a world alive with creativity and purpose, a civilization that harmonizes survival, trade, and aesthetic expression. Metallurgy played a crucial role in the Indus Valley, reflecting both practical needs and technical sophistication. Copper and bronze were widely used for tools, weapons, and ornaments, carefully alloyed to achieve the desired strength and durability. Imagine a craftsman carefully melting copper in a small furnace, watching it flow like liquid fire into molds shaped with precision. Axes, knives, and chisels emerge, essential for farming, construction, and daily life, while ornaments such as bangles, pins, and small figurines reflect the artistry of the society. These metals were not merely functional, they were a medium through which skill, creativity, and social identity were expressed, bridging the gap between practicality and culture. Trade networks expanded the influence of Indus craftsmanship far beyond the plains. Merchants traveled long distances, carrying beads, pottery, textiles, and metals to distant lands. Mesopotamia, located hundreds of miles to the west, had strong commercial connections with the Indus, as evidenced by the discovery of Indus seals and artifacts in cities like Ur and Sumer. Imagine a caravan slowly making its way across deserts and river valleys, laden with finely crafted goods, while traders negotiate deals that involve complex systems of weights, measures, and seals to ensure fairness and authenticity. Through these interactions, the Indus people not only exported material goods, but also exchanged ideas, artistic motifs, and techniques, creating a flow of knowledge that shaped cultures across continents. Seals, carved from steatite or other stones, were a distinctive hallmark of Indus trade and administration. Each seal bore intricate designs, animals, abstract symbols, or combinations of both, and often included the Indus script. Merchants pressed these seals into clay to mark ownership or authenticate shipments, ensuring trust in commercial transactions. Imagine a trader in a distant city examining a clay tablet impressed with a seal from Harappa, recognizing both its origin and the authority behind it. Beyond their functional role, seals were works of art, conveying symbolic meaning, spiritual resonance, and cultural identity. Each tiny piece of carved stone served as a bridge between practicality and communication, commerce and culture. Pottery and ceramics were another testament to Indus skill and innovation. Bowls, jars, and cooking vessels were shaped with precision, fired to resist heat and wear, and often decorated with geometric or animal motifs. Imagine a potter turning clay on a wheel, shaping a vessel with steady hands, while the patterns painted on its surface tell subtle stories of nature, mythology, or daily life. These objects were essential to domestic life, storage, and trade, blending utility with aesthetic expression. The level of uniformity in production across distant settlements suggests standardized techniques, coordinated workshops, and a shared cultural understanding of craft that strengthened social cohesion and economic efficiency. Textiles, though perishable and largely lost to time, were undoubtedly another domain of Indus innovation. Spinning, weaving, and dyeing techniques allowed for the creation of garments, household textiles, and trade goods that were both functional and visually appealing. Imagine looms softly clacking in the corner of a courtyard, threads interweaving into patterns, colors extracted from natural plants, minerals, and insects. Clothing served not only to protect the body but to signify social identity, skill, and taste. The sophistication of textile production highlights the civilization's capacity for abstract thinking, planning, and artistic expression, reinforcing the idea that the Indus people combined practicality with creativity at every level of life. Technological innovations extended into architecture, urban planning, and sanitation. Streets were laid out in precise grids, with homes constructed from standardized bricks, drainage channels running beneath them to carry wastewater efficiently. Imagine engineers supervising the construction of these streets, carefully leveling surfaces, aligning drains, and ensuring that water flowed away from homes without stagnation. Such achievements demonstrate a deep understanding of hydraulics, civil engineering, and public health, allowing cities to thrive with remarkable efficiency. These systems reflect foresight, collaboration, and the application of knowledge to improve quality of life for the entire community, a hallmark of the Indus civilization. Trade also stimulated cultural and technological exchange. As Indus goods traveled to Mesopotamia, Persia, and beyond, ideas, motifs, and techniques traveled in parallel. The flow of knowledge inspired innovations in craft, urban planning, and even social practices. Imagine artisans observing imported designs on foreign objects, adapting techniques to suit local styles, or traders introducing new commodities that shift consumption patterns. Through these networks, the Indus civilization participated in an early form of globalization, where human ingenuity, commerce, and cultural identity spread across landscapes, connecting communities separated by vast distances while reinforcing local ingenuity and creativity. Jewelry, an integral part of Indus material culture, demonstrates both technical skill and symbolic importance. Beads, bangles, pendants, and rings were crafted from semi-precious stones such as carnelian, steatite, and lapis lazuli, as well as metals like bronze and gold. Imagine a young artisan carefully drilling holes in tiny stones using tools of bone or copper, stringing them into necklaces with meticulous attention to spacing, symmetry, and balance. Jewelry served multiple purposes. It was decorative, signified status, and likely carried ritual or protective meanings. The combination of aesthetic, symbolic, and technical mastery exemplifies the holistic approach the Indus people had toward the objects they created. Even mundane tools reveal extraordinary insight into material science and human needs. Bronze knives, axes, farming implements, and measuring devices were precisely cast and finished to serve specific purposes. Imagine a craftsman testing the edge of a freshly cast axe, ensuring it slices cleanly, or adjusting the weight of a bronze plumb line to measure accurately. Such attention to detail reflects a civilization in which functionality and precision were as valued as beauty and symbolism, demonstrating the balance of practicality and innovation that permeated all aspects of life. The Indus people's ingenuity extended to storage and transport as well. Standardized containers, weights, and measures facilitated trade and daily life, ensuring fair exchange and reducing disputes. Imagine granaries filled with sacks of grain, each carefully weighed and labeled, while traders navigate rivers and roads, confident that the system will maintain accuracy and trust. This level of organization reflects both technical understanding and a social contract, where collaboration and adherence to shared rules were necessary for the prosperity of cities, trade networks, and individual livelihoods. As the sun casts its golden glow across the Indus plains, life in the cities hums with a rhythm that is both practical and profoundly spiritual. Religion and ritual were deeply woven into daily existence, subtly guiding behavior, shaping communal life, and reflecting a sophisticated worldview. Unlike later civilizations dominated by imposing temples or monumental statues, the spiritual life of the Indus people was quiet, integrated, and highly symbolic, permeating homes, workshops, and public spaces. Imagine walking through the narrow streets of Mohenjo-Daro, past bustling marketplaces and well-ordered homes, while glimpses of small altars, terracotta figurines, and carefully placed symbols hint at the spiritual consciousness of the city's inhabitants. These objects and practices provided meaning, cohesion, and a sense of protection for families and communities alike. Terracotta figurines are among the most compelling artifacts revealing the spiritual and symbolic imagination of the Indus people. Many depict women with exaggerated features, particularly hips and breasts, interpreted as fertility figures. Imagine a family placing a small figurine in the corner of a courtyard, offering prayers for healthy children, a bountiful harvest, or protection from illness. These figurines, carefully shaped and baked in kilns, were both objects of devotion and reflections of aesthetic sensibility. Alongside them, animal figures, cows, elephants, tigers, and mythical creatures, embodied both the tangible and symbolic worlds. Bulls, for example, may have represented strength, vitality, or agricultural prosperity, while other animals could symbolize spiritual qualities, protection, or connection to the natural order. Seals, carved with incredible precision, further reveal the intersection of the practical and the spiritual. Each seal bore not only animals but also abstract symbols, the meaning of which remains a mystery. They likely served multiple purposes, as markers of ownership in trade, identifiers in administrative matters, and as protective or ritual objects. Imagine a trader pressing a seal into a clay tag, sending it with a caravan of goods downriver, simultaneously safeguarding property and invoking a subtle spiritual authority. These seals suggest that communication, commerce, and ritual were deeply intertwined, with each seal embodying a microcosm of social, economic, and spiritual life. Rituals likely extended into water and bathing practices, reflecting an appreciation for cleanliness, purification, and renewal. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro stands as the most striking example. This large, carefully constructed pool, surrounded by steps and platforms, may have been used for ceremonial bathing, a communal act of cleansing, or a ritual of social or religious significance. Imagine the serene quiet of water reflecting early morning light as people step into the bath, the act itself combining physical purification with spiritual intention. Water, already central to agriculture and urban life, thus became a medium for ritual and reflection, a tangible connection between the natural, practical, and spiritual worlds. Domestic life also bore spiritual dimensions. Homes often contained small altars or shrines, where daily offerings could be made, whether for protection, health, or gratitude. Imagine a household gathering in the evening, placing grains, flowers, or small figurines on a simple platform, the soft glow of oil lamps flickering across walls, while the family pauses to honor unseen forces that safeguard their lives. Such practices demonstrate a subtle but profound spiritual literacy, where ritual is embedded into everyday life rather than separated into grandiose ceremonies. The sacred and the mundane flowed together seamlessly, shaping values, ethics, and social behavior. The arts, sculpture, pottery, painting, and beadwork, also carried symbolic significance. Objects were carefully crafted not only for utility but to reflect beauty, status, and meaning. Beads of carnelian steatite and semi-precious stones were strung into intricate jewelry, likely serving as adornment, protective charms, and status markers. Pottery, with its geometric or animal motifs, was both functional and expressive, turning everyday objects into conveyors of cultural identity and aesthetic appreciation. Imagine an artisan meticulously drilling tiny holes in a stone bead, ensuring symmetry and polish, while the patterns etched on its surface encode cultural and spiritual significance. Art in the Indus Valley was never merely decorative. It was a medium of identity, belief, and social cohesion. The symbolic world extended into the broader cityscape. Streets, wells, and public spaces were carefully planned, suggesting an awareness of harmony, order, and social propriety that may have been informed by spiritual as well as practical considerations. Imagine walking through a Mohenjo-Daro neighborhood, homes aligned in perfect grids, drains carefully channeling water, public wells accessible to all. This organization reflects more than utility. It embodies principles of balance, respect for the collective, and an implicit understanding of ethical urban living. Civilization in this sense was not just about survival. It was an art form, a shared practice of order, care, and symbolic alignment with nature and community. The Indus people's understanding of cycles and nature was reflected in festivals, rituals, and seasonal observances, though the details remain speculative. Agricultural cycles, moon phases, and seasonal changes would have structured communal activities, perhaps inspiring offerings to ensure fertility, health, and prosperity. Imagine villages marking the return of the monsoon with symbolic acts of gratitude, weaving together the rhythms of earth, water, and human labor into a coherent cultural and spiritual experience. These practices demonstrate an acute awareness of interdependence between humans and environment, a respect that permeates both religious and practical life. Symbolic artifacts such as miniature terracotta animals, figurines, and pottery were not limited to private devotion. They were likely involved in communal rituals and public ceremonies as well. Imagine a village square during a festival, children carrying small figurines, elders arranging ceremonial objects, and the community collectively enacting traditions that honor both the natural and spiritual world. Such practices reinforced social bonds, transmitted cultural knowledge, and instilled values in younger generations. Ritual, art, and daily life thus existed in a dynamic, interconnected web, shaping the social fabric of the civilization. Even in seemingly mundane objects, symbolic meaning was present. Household items, tools, and containers often bore designs or patterns that reflected aesthetic preferences, spiritual beliefs, or cultural conventions. The line between utility and symbolism was subtle, creating an environment where every action, object, and space carried layered significance. Imagine a pot used to store grain, its surface etched with geometric designs that may represent fertility, protection, or a shared cultural motif. This integration of symbolism into everyday life reflects a society where meaning was embedded, experienced, and continuously reinforced through observation, practice, and creativity. The arts, religion, and symbolic life of the Indus people also reveal remarkable inclusivity and balance. There is little evidence of hierarchical imposition in spiritual practices or artistic production. Rather, creativity and ritual appear accessible to a wide range of individuals. Imagine children helping decorate a figurine, families crafting small offerings, and artisans producing objects that circulate across social and geographic spaces. The resulting culture is cohesive yet dynamic, practical yet deeply imaginative, reflecting an intricate interplay between daily survival, communal responsibility, and symbolic expression. Through all these elements, figurines, seals, baths, temples of the imagination, jewelry, pottery, and ritual observances, a holistic view of the Indus Valley Civilization emerges. It is a society that integrates material, spiritual, and social dimensions, where every action and artifact participates in a delicate dance of meaning, function, and beauty. Walking through its streets in imagination, one perceives not only a bustling urban life, but also a quietly pervasive consciousness of order, morality, and the sacredness of daily existence. The Indus civilization stands as a testament to humanity's capacity to weave together survival, culture, and symbolism into an enduring, harmonious whole. The quiet streets and bustling workshops of the Indus Valley were not only centers of craft and commerce, but also hubs of communication and record-keeping, revealing a civilization that prized knowledge, organization, and coordination. Central to this intellectual life was the enigmatic Indus script, a system of symbols carved onto seals, tablets, and pottery. Though undeciphered, these markings suggest that the people of the Indus Valley had developed a sophisticated means of representing ideas, identities, and transactions. Imagine a merchant pressing a seal into clay to mark a shipment of goods, or a scribe carefully tracing symbols onto a tablet, each stroke precise, deliberate, and loaded with meaning. Even if the exact messages remain elusive to modern eyes, the effort itself speaks of literacy, record-keeping, and a shared understanding of symbolic communication. Education in the Indus Valley was deeply intertwined with daily life, skill transfer, and apprenticeship. Formal schools, as we understand them today, may not have existed, but knowledge was passed down meticulously from elder to apprentice, parent to child, and master to student. Imagine a young boy observing his father shaping clay or carving seals, gradually learning not only the technical skills, but also the cultural and symbolic significance embedded in each gesture. Similarly, children assisting in workshops or tending fields absorbed lessons about measurement, trade, social responsibility, and the rhythms of nature. Education was immersive and holistic, blending practical training with moral and cultural instruction, ensuring that skills, values, and traditions persisted across generations. Administration in the Indus Valley demonstrates an extraordinary degree of organization and foresight. Cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were laid out in precise grids, suggesting not only urban planning, but also centralized coordination. Imagine officials supervising the construction of streets, canals, and public buildings, ensuring that homes, wells, and workshops were aligned for optimal use of space and resources. Standardized weights and measures facilitated trade and taxation, creating trust and uniformity across a vast urban landscape. The presence of seals further implies mechanisms of authentication, accountability, and bureaucratic control. These systems reflect an understanding that civic life requires structure, fairness, and oversight, all integrated seamlessly into the fabric of urban existence. Communication extended beyond the city walls into regional and international networks. Traders, artisans, and travelers carried symbols, objects, and ideas along rivers, roads, and deserts. Imagine a caravan journeying hundreds of miles, bearing ceramics, beads, and metals, leaving an imprint of Indus culture wherever it traveled. Seals and inscriptions ensured that goods could be identified, transactions verified, and agreements honored even far from home. Communication was thus both practical and symbolic, bridging distances, reinforcing trust, and transmitting cultural values. In this sense, the Indus civilization was not isolated. It was part of a broader exchange of goods, knowledge, and ideas that connected communities across South and West Asia. The Indus script itself, despite remaining undeciphered, provides insight into administrative sophistication. Its presence on seals, tablets, and pottery suggests use in trade, taxation, religious practice, or personal identification. Imagine a warehouse keeper pressing a seal into a clay tag, ensuring that the quantity of grain, the type of goods, or the destination is recorded accurately. These small impressions encode complex social and economic information, demonstrating a civilization capable of abstract thought, planning, and standardization. Each mark is a testament to human ingenuity, a silent yet eloquent record of lives lived in coordination and purpose. Language and symbolic thought extended into daily life, reinforcing cultural cohesion and continuity. Even without fully deciphering the script, we can infer that symbols and patterns were widely understood, forming a shared vocabulary for trade, ritual, and governance. Imagine children learning to recognize these symbols while helping in workshops, or merchants interpreting them during trade, gradually internalizing a system of knowledge that shaped their actions and interactions. Communication in the Indus Valley was thus both functional and cultural, transmitting information while reinforcing collective identity and social norms. Measurement and standardization were also vital to communication and administration. Cubical weights, carefully calibrated and uniform across settlements, ensured fairness in trade and domestic transactions. Imagine a trader weighing carnelian beads on a small stone balance, confident that the system guarantees consistency, whether in Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, or a distant village. These standards reflect both technical expertise and social agreement, demonstrating the civilization's emphasis on precision, fairness, and reliability. The integration of measurement into everyday life shows how practical systems and abstract understanding of numbers were used to sustain complex urban and economic networks. Trade communication required detailed knowledge of geography, river routes, and regional networks. Merchants and travelers relied on both natural landmarks and human-made signals to navigate vast distances. Imagine a caravan carefully noting river bends, seasonal changes, and settlements along the way, passing messages and verifying routes through shared symbols or oral instructions. These practices highlight a sophisticated understanding of spatial relationships, logistics, and social coordination, ensuring that trade, ideas, and cultural influence moved efficiently across the landscape. Communication was thus as much about observation and adaptation as it was about writing and symbols. Cultural knowledge, embedded in objects and practices, functioned as a form of communication in itself. Beads, pottery designs, seals, and figurines carried symbolic messages, conveying identity, social status, spiritual belief, and regional affiliation. Imagine a trader examining a string of carnelian beads or a seal impression, recognizing its origin, craftsmanship, and the reputation of its maker. These subtle cues facilitated interactions, reinforced social trust, and enabled the Indus people to navigate complex social and economic networks. In this way, the material culture of the civilization served not only practical needs but also communicative and symbolic purposes. Education and literacy were closely tied to craft and trade. Mastery of tools, symbols, and techniques required instruction, practice, and reflection. Imagine apprentices observing the precise carving of a seal or the measured pouring of molten bronze, gradually internalizing not only the skill, but the underlying principles of proportion, symbolism, and functionality. This form of experiential learning ensured that knowledge was passed on in context, reinforcing both practical abilities and cultural understanding. Learning was thus integrated seamlessly into life, as every action, observation, and practice became an opportunity for education. Even in governance, communication was subtle yet effective. Standardized bricks, street grids, and drainage systems reflect coordination, planning, and oversight. Imagine officials inspecting construction, adjusting measurements, or overseeing maintenance of public works. The very design of the city communicated standards, expectations, and organization, conveying messages to inhabitants about order, responsibility, and social norms. In this way, urban planning, infrastructure, and administrative practice intersected, forming a network of explicit and implicit communication that sustained civic life. Through these systems of writing, language, education, administration, and communication, the Indus Valley Civilization achieved a level of sophistication that is both tangible and intangible. While some aspects remain mysterious, the evidence reveals a society capable of coordinating complex urban life, sustaining economic networks, and transmitting cultural knowledge across generations and regions. Imagine walking through the streets of Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa, sensing the rhythm of a society where communication, both symbolic and practical, permeates every brick, seal, and canal, quietly orchestrating the daily lives of tens of thousands of people in harmony and efficiency. Within the meticulously planned streets of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, life unfolded in patterns both intimate and communal, revealing the social fabric that sustained one of the world's earliest urban civilizations. Families lived in modest yet carefully constructed homes, often made of standardized baked bricks, each dwelling opening onto narrow lanes that connected to bustling marketplaces, wells, and public spaces. Imagine a household waking at dawn, the mother preparing meals over a small hearth, children assisting in chores, while fathers head toward workshops, fields, or trade expeditions. Daily routines were intertwined with social interaction, creating a rhythm in which private life, community responsibilities, and urban living were deeply integrated. The family unit formed the core of social organization. Houses were typically built around courtyards, where multiple generations might share space, labor, and resources. Imagine a courtyard alive with activity, children playing amid stacks of stored grain, elders mending pottery, and families tending small domestic gardens or livestock. This physical closeness facilitated the transmission of skills, values, and cultural norms. Each member had a role, whether in household management, farming, crafting, or commerce, reinforcing interdependence and cooperation. The layout of homes with private rooms, shared spaces, and accessible wells reflects a balance between privacy, social cohesion, and practicality. Occupations were diverse and specialized, creating a complex economic ecosystem that supported urban life. Artisans shaped clay into pottery, carved seals, and drilled beads. Metallurgists worked with copper, bronze, and gold. Weavers spun threads into textiles. farmers tended fields and livestock. Imagine an artisan carefully shaping a carnelian bead while the faint hum of a potter's wheel spins in the background, or a metallurgist checking the consistency of molten bronze in a small furnace. This specialization allowed the Indus people to produce surplus goods, sustain trade networks, and cultivate cultural and technological innovation. Each occupation, while distinct, was interconnected, forming an intricate web of economic and social collaboration. Trade and commerce were not only practical but also reinforced social hierarchies and relationships. Merchants negotiated deals both locally and with distant cities, while small-scale vendors and artisans facilitated the flow of goods and services within neighborhoods. Imagine a market scene, pots clinking, beads strung into necklaces, fruits and vegetables arranged in neat rows, and fish sold fresh from early morning catches. Through trade, families secured resources, reinforced alliances, and exchanged information, knowledge, and cultural practices. The marketplace was both a hub of economic activity and a stage for social interaction, where reputation, skill, and trust were constantly negotiated. The Indus Valley Civilization also exhibits evidence of a nuanced social structure. While precise details remain speculative, patterns in housing, artifacts, and city layout suggest distinctions based on wealth, occupation, and influence, rather than rigid hierarchies. Larger homes with multiple rooms, private wells, and more elaborate decorations likely belong to families engaged in trade, administration, or skilled crafts. Imagine walking past these residences, courtyards adorned with terracotta figurines, storage spaces for surplus goods, and workshops seamlessly integrated into domestic life. Yet despite differences in scale or material wealth, the overall planning and uniformity of streets, drains, and brick size indicate an underlying egalitarian ethos, where civic standards and communal infrastructure ensured cohesion. Communities were closely knit, their interactions shaped by shared resources, responsibilities, and social norms. Public wells, bathhouses, granaries, and marketplaces were accessible to residents across neighborhoods, reinforcing collective stewardship and mutual accountability. Imagine villagers gathering at a central well, exchanging news, helping each other maintain drainage channels, or collaborating in repair of city walls after seasonal floods. Such cooperation fostered a sense of belonging, strengthened social bonds, and allowed complex urban life to function smoothly. Community dynamics were built on both necessity and shared values, creating resilience and continuity. Family life extended beyond survival and work into rituals, celebrations, and cultural practices that reinforced identity and cohesion. Birth, marriage, seasonal festivals, and harvest cycles likely involved communal participation, blending spiritual, social, and economic dimensions. Imagine a family offering a small terracotta figurine to celebrate a child's first steps, or neighbors gathering to mark the arrival of monsoon rains with music, dance, or shared meals. These practices cultivated shared memory, transmitted traditions, and nurtured social solidarity. Through ritual, work, and daily interaction, the Indus people created a culture that was simultaneously personal and communal, private and civic. Education and skill development were closely tied to occupations and family life. Young members of households learned by observation and hands-on practice, gradually acquiring proficiency in crafts, farming, trade, and domestic management. Imagine a boy shadowing his father in the workshop, learning to carve precise motifs on a seal, while a girl assists her mother in preparing grains or weaving cloth. Knowledge was transmitted organically, embedded in routine tasks, storytelling, and communal participation. This form of education ensured continuity, preserved cultural memory, and integrated practical skills with social norms, forming a holistic system of learning. Social gatherings and public spaces further reinforced cohesion and identity. Markets, streets, bathhouses, and wells were more than functional. They were arenas for exchange, observation, and interaction. Imagine neighbors comparing grain quality, sharing techniques for pottery or bead making, or collectively resolving disputes over trade or water distribution. These interactions reinforced social hierarchies, facilitated conflict resolution, and nurtured networks of trust. The physical and social landscape of the Indus cities thus mirrored the values, priorities, and organization of their inhabitants, blending order with flexibility, individuality with communal responsibility. The occupational diversity also shaped cultural expression. Artisans and craftsmen imbued everyday objects with aesthetic, symbolic, and practical value, reflecting both personal skill and collective identity. Imagine a weaver dyeing threads with natural pigments, a potter painting geometric patterns on a storage jar, or a bead maker carefully selecting stones for size, color, and symmetry. Each act of creation was simultaneously an economic contribution and a cultural statement, a reflection of the interconnectedness of work, beauty, and social life. Even leisure and recreation were intertwined with social and community dynamics. Games, music, and perhaps dance provided relaxation, skill development, and bonding opportunities. Imagine children playing simple games in courtyards, adolescents learning rhythm and movement, and families gathering to share music or storytelling in the evenings. Such activities nurtured creativity, reinforced social norms, and offered respite from labor, contributing to the overall well-being and resilience of the community. Through all these aspects, family life, occupations, community interactions, education, and leisure, the social structure of the Indus Valley Civilization emerges as dynamic, cohesive, and resilient. Individuals were connected through networks of labor, kinship, ritual, and trade, creating an urban society where survival, culture, and identity were interdependent. Imagine the hum of daily life, courtyards alive with chores and play, workshops filled with the rhythmic sounds of creation, streets lined with neighbors exchanging goods and ideas, and the invisible threads of shared norms and values weaving together a society both orderly and adaptive. The Indus people lived in a balance of private endeavor and communal responsibility, their cities embodying the delicate equilibrium of human interconnection and social harmony. Walking through the streets of Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa, one is immediately struck by the remarkable organization and ingenuity embedded in the very fabric of the city. Urban infrastructure was not an afterthought. It was a deliberate, sophisticated expression of planning, engineering, and social coordination. Streets were laid out in a grid-like pattern, intersecting at precise right angles, creating orderly blocks of homes, workshops, and public spaces. Imagine walking along these broad, straight avenues, paved with flat stones and flanked by sturdy brick walls, where every turn reveals a rhythm of alignment and purpose. The careful arrangement was both practical and symbolic, reflecting the Indus people's understanding of spatial organization, communal welfare, and aesthetic harmony. Sanitation was perhaps the most astonishing feature of Indus urban planning, setting it apart from contemporary civilizations. Homes and public buildings were connected to an intricate system of drains, channels, and wells that carried wastewater away efficiently. Imagine stepping into a quiet courtyard, with a small brick-lined drain running along one side, guiding water toward larger covered channels that flow beneath the streets. Wastewater was managed to prevent contamination, reflecting a profound understanding of hygiene, public health, and urban comfort. Private wells ensured that households had access to clean water, while public wells served broader neighborhoods, fostering community responsibility and equitable access to essential resources. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro exemplifies the combination of technical skill, ritual significance, and communal planning. This large, carefully constructed pool, surrounded by platforms and steps, may have been used for ceremonial bathing or public ritual, symbolizing purification and renewal. Imagine residents gathering at the pool's edge, the still water reflecting the soft morning light, while children watch and elders supervise. The precision of construction, the waterproofing, the steps, the surrounding drainage, demonstrates not only architectural prowess, but also an awareness of human needs, spiritual symbolism, and civic pride. The Great Bath is more than a pool. It is a testament to a civilization that integrated utility, spirituality, and communal experience. Public spaces were thoughtfully integrated into the cityscape, enhancing both social interaction and urban functionality. Open courtyards, assembly areas, and marketplaces allowed people to gather, exchange goods, and participate in communal activities. Imagine a bustling market square, merchants arranging pottery, grains, and textiles, while citizens converse, barter, and observe the rhythms of daily life. These spaces were carefully designed to accommodate movement, trade, and gatherings, reinforcing social cohesion while ensuring practical accessibility. Urban design was thus both a reflection of human needs and a facilitator of community, shaping behavior, interaction, and shared identity. Drainage systems were marvels of engineering, demonstrating foresight, technical skill, and societal commitment to public welfare. Covered drains ran along streets, connecting individual homes, workshops, and public buildings to larger conduits that carried wastewater efficiently out of the city. Imagine a worker inspecting a brick-lined drain, ensuring that water flows smoothly, or a family observing that their household wastewater is being carried away cleanly, reducing risk of disease and unpleasant odors. Such attention to detail required coordination, planning, and an understanding of hydraulics, reflecting a civilization where practical knowledge and civic responsibility were deeply intertwined. The use of standardized bricks in construction contributed to both efficiency and aesthetic harmony. Bricks were uniform in size, carefully molded and baked, allowing for precision in building homes, walls, and public structures. Imagine builders stacking brick after brick with consistent dimensions, creating walls that are sturdy, orderly, and visually pleasing. This standardization facilitated construction across different cities and neighborhoods, ensuring that infrastructure could be replicated with uniform quality, while also simplifying repair, expansion, and maintenance. Uniformity in materials reflects an advanced understanding of planning, quality control, and logistical management. Street design also reveals an awareness of ventilation, light, and urban comfort. Streets were often aligned to optimize airflow and sunlight, reducing stagnation and improving the livability of densely populated areas. Imagine walking through a shaded lane where the height of walls and width of streets are balanced to provide relief from summer heat, while allowing rainwater to drain effectively into channels. Such planning demonstrates a deep understanding of the natural environment and its interaction with urban life, a fusion of technical knowledge and practical empathy for daily experience. Water management extended beyond sanitation into agricultural and domestic systems. Reservoirs, wells, and canals supported irrigation, drinking water, and public use, allowing cities to thrive even in variable climates. Imagine farmers and city dwellers alike relying on this engineered water network, which sustains both crops and urban populations. The integration of hydrology, engineering, and planning shows a society capable of long-term thinking, foresight, and collaboration. Efficient water management was not just practical, it reinforced social stability, communal trust, and environmental awareness. Community oversight was essential to maintain this infrastructure. Residents, officials, and skilled workers collaborated to ensure streets remained clean, drains unobstructed, and public spaces functional. Imagine neighbors collectively repairing a collapsed drain, or a craftsman reinforcing steps around a well, embodying a sense of civic duty and mutual responsibility. Such participation reflects a social contract. The success of the city depended on the cooperation, accountability, and engagement of all its inhabitants. Urban life was thus both individually beneficial and socially reinforcing, blending personal convenience with collective welfare. The sophistication of city planning extended to resource allocation and storage. Granaries, storage facilities, and workshops were strategically positioned to optimize access and efficiency. Imagine large storage halls near marketplaces, with meticulously measured spaces for grain, pottery, and trade goods. The organization ensured that resources could be distributed, traded, and stored with minimal loss and maximum transparency. Planning was therefore not only technical, but also economic and social, reinforcing the interdependence of infrastructure, trade, and community life. Even the smallest details, such as street corners, staircases, and access to water, were thoughtfully considered. Access points were designed to reduce congestion, facilitate trade, and maintain hygiene. Imagine a family carrying water from a public well, easily navigating the paved streets without encountering obstacles or waste. This attention to detail reflects a civilization where urban infrastructure was a seamless part of daily life, quietly shaping behavior, efficiency, and social interaction. The streets, drains, wells, and baths are as much expressions of culture and organization as they are tools for survival and comfort. Through these urban systems, the Indus Valley Civilization demonstrates a remarkable fusion of practicality, foresight, and aesthetic sensibility. Streets, drains, baths, public wells, and granaries were not merely functional. They were carefully orchestrated expressions of social coordination, technical knowledge, and cultural values. Imagine walking through these cities in your mind. The hum of life, the flow of water beneath the streets, the precision of brickwork, and the orderliness of movement and commerce, all reflecting a society capable of sophisticated planning, collaboration, and long-term thinking. The city itself becomes a living testament to the ingenuity, organization, and foresight of the Indus people, a civilization that harmonized human needs, environmental conditions, and communal welfare in ways that continue to astonish even millennia later. Beyond the meticulously planned streets and bustling marketplaces, the lifeblood of the Indus Valley Civilization flowed from its fertile fields, orchards, and pastures. Agriculture was both the backbone of survival and the foundation of social and economic complexity. Imagine the vast plains stretching to the horizon, fields of wheat, barley, and pulses swaying gently in the breeze, their golden tips catching the sunlight. The Indus people cultivated a wide variety of crops, carefully selecting seeds, timing planting cycles with seasonal rains, and employing knowledge passed down through generations. Their expertise allowed them to produce surplus food, sustaining large urban populations, and supporting trade networks that extended across regions. Irrigation and water management were crucial to agricultural success. Canals, reservoirs, and wells channeled the life-giving waters of the Indus River and its tributaries to fields during the dry season. Imagine farmers working side by side, guiding water through earthen channels, checking for proper distribution, and ensuring that every plot received sufficient moisture. This was not merely a technical activity, but a sophisticated system of environmental understanding, requiring observation, experimentation, and coordination. The ability to manipulate water to support crops reflects a civilization deeply attuned to its natural environment, blending ingenuity with patience and foresight. Domesticated animals played a vital role in both agriculture and daily life. Cattle, buffalo, goats, sheep, and possibly camels provided milk, meat, hides, and labor, assisting in plowing fields and transporting goods. Imagine a farmer guiding oxen yoked to a wooden plow, the rhythmic motion turning the rich soil, while goats graze nearby and dogs accompany the household. Animals were not only practical assets but also held symbolic and possibly spiritual significance, reflected in seals, figurines, and art. The careful domestication and integration of animals into human life illustrates an understanding of ecology, animal behavior, and sustainable resource management. The diet of the Indus people was diverse and balanced, reflecting both the bounty of cultivated crops and the availability of wild resources. Grains like wheat and barley formed staples, while legumes, fruits, vegetables, and nuts provided essential nutrients and variety. Imagine families preparing meals over clay hearths, boiling lentils, roasting grains, and combining them with seasonal vegetables for sustenance. Fish sourced from rivers and ponds supplemented protein intake, and occasional meat from domesticated or hunted animals added richness and variety to the diet. Food was both nourishment and a cultural expression, tied to rituals, seasonal cycles, and communal life. Processing and storage were equally sophisticated, ensuring both efficiency and food security. Granaries, storage jars, and specially designed spaces preserved grains, pulses, and other essentials for months or years. Imagine workers filling large storage bins with carefully cleaned and sorted wheat, ensuring that the community could withstand droughts, floods, or periods of scarcity. Tools such as grinding stones, mortars, and pestles allowed grains and legumes to be transformed into flour and paste, ready for cooking. These innovations reflect a deep understanding of nutrition, preservation, and resource management, ensuring that the fruits of labor could sustain both urban populations and agricultural communities. Trade and surplus production were closely tied to agriculture. Surplus grains, pulses, and other food products were exchanged within cities, between settlements, and even with distant regions such as Mesopotamia. Imagine caravans laden with sacks of grain and jars of dried goods moving along river routes or dusty trails. Seals pressed into clay tags to mark ownership and authenticity. These networks enabled the Indus people not only to distribute essential resources, but also to acquire exotic goods like carnelian, precious metals, and luxury items. Agriculture thus became a driver of economic complexity, cultural exchange, and regional influence. Seasonality shaped the rhythm of life and food production. Planting and harvest cycles, the arrival of monsoon rains, and the flow of rivers dictated when fields were sown, irrigated, and harvested. Imagine a family observing clouds gather in the distant sky, preparing to plant crops as the first rains fall, while the community anticipates the harvest festivals that follow. These seasonal rhythms were not only practical, they structured social life, reinforced communal bonds, and connected people with the cycles of nature in a profound and intuitive way. Food production was inseparable from cultural patterns, environmental awareness, and spiritual practices. Culinary practices, though modest in archaeological evidence, likely reflected creativity, resourcefulness, and cultural identity. Imagine meals prepared using clay pots, heated over small hearths, combining grains, legumes, and local vegetables with herbs or seeds for flavor and nutrition. Food may have been shared communally, whether in households or during festive gatherings, reinforcing social cohesion and collective responsibility. The act of cooking and eating was therefore not merely functional but embedded in social, cultural, and ritual contexts. Domesticated plants and animals also had symbolic and economic significance. Certain crops or livestock may have been reserved for ritual purposes, trade, or elite households, creating a hierarchy of resources and cultural meaning. Imagine a bull depicted on a seal, simultaneously representing agricultural strength, spiritual potency, and communal prosperity. The interweaving of practicality, symbolism, and economics in food and agriculture reflects the holistic worldview of the Indus people, where survival, prosperity, and cultural expression were inseparable. The Indus Valley's success in agriculture was intimately linked to environmental adaptation and observation. Floodplains, riverbanks, and alluvial soils were utilized with remarkable precision, while crop diversity mitigated the risks posed by climate variability. Imagine communities adjusting planting techniques in response to subtle changes in river levels or seasonal rainfall, blending empirical knowledge with inherited wisdom. This adaptive strategy ensured resilience and sustainability, allowing urban centers to thrive alongside rural agricultural settlements. Through careful cultivation, animal husbandry, storage, trade, and seasonal planning, the Indus Valley Civilization transformed natural resources into sustainable abundance. Imagine standing in a field at dawn, watching oxen plow rich soil, farmers sow seeds in orderly rows, and rivers glinting with the reflection of early sunlight. A scene that embodies both human ingenuity and harmonious interaction with nature. Agriculture was not merely an economic necessity, it was the foundation upon which urban life, social organization, and cultural identity were built, enabling the civilization to flourish for centuries with remarkable stability, efficiency, and resilience. While the fields and pastures provided sustenance, it was the bustling networks of trade and craft specialization that gave the Indus Valley Civilization its economic vibrancy and regional influence. Imagine walking through the workshops and marketplaces of Harappa or Mohenjo-daro, the rhythmic tapping of chisels on stone, the soft whir of potters' wheels, and the gentle clinking of beads as artisans string them with painstaking precision. Each craftsperson was a specialist, mastering a trade that not only supported daily life, but also positioned their city as a hub of regional and long-distance exchange. Beads, pottery, seals, metal tools, and ornaments were produced in such volumes and quality that they became commodities for trade across distant lands. Craft specialization was more than mere economic activity. It was a reflection of skill, cultural identity, and social organization. Artisans devoted years to perfecting techniques in bead-making, bronze casting, pottery, and seal carving. Imagine a young apprentice carefully observing a master drill carnelian beads, each hole meticulously aligned, the surface polished to a lustrous finish. Metalworkers combined copper and tin to create bronze tools, weapons, and ritual objects, experimenting with ratios, temperature, and techniques to achieve optimal strength and durability. Such craftsmanship required not only dexterity, but a deep understanding of materials and processes, knowledge passed down meticulously through generations. Trade extended both within the Indus region and far beyond, connecting cities, settlements, and distant civilizations. Local trade ensured that urban centers were stocked with food, raw materials, and manufactured goods, while long-distance trade brought exotic resources, luxury items, and ideas into the region. Imagine a merchant preparing a shipment of carnelian beads, pressed with seals to indicate origin and ownership, destined for Mesopotamia, Oman, or the Arabian Peninsula. These transactions relied on trust, standardization, and coordination, illustrating a sophisticated economic infrastructure that balanced local needs with regional ambitions. Seals played a crucial role in this economic network, functioning as identifiers, guarantees, and tools of administration. Imagine a caravan loaded with grain, beads, or crafted goods, each item marked with a small engraved seal. This seal not only authenticated the origin of the goods, but may have invoked protective or spiritual authority, symbolically ensuring that the transaction would proceed without dispute. Such practices demonstrate a nuanced understanding of commerce, legal accountability, and communication, merging practical economic concerns with social and symbolic systems. Markets were vibrant centers of exchange, education, and cultural interaction. Merchants, artisans, and farmers converged in designated areas, negotiating prices, demonstrating craftsmanship, and sharing knowledge. Imagine the lively energy of a marketplace. Baskets of freshly harvested grains, gleaming beads of carnelian and steatite, intricately carved seals displayed with pride, and wares arranged in carefully measured quantities to facilitate trade. Beyond the tangible goods, these spaces were arenas for social learning, reputation building, and the negotiation of trust, reinforcing communal cohesion alongside economic activity. Long-distance trade also facilitated the circulation of ideas, techniques, and cultural practices. Imported raw materials such as lapis lazuli, carnelian, and precious metals were transformed into crafted goods, which in turn traveled along trade networks, carrying the imprint of Indus aesthetics and skill. Imagine artisans adapting techniques learned from distant cultures, experimenting with new styles, and incorporating foreign motifs into local designs. These exchanges enriched the cultural and technological repertoire of the civilization, demonstrating that trade was as much about knowledge and influence as it was about commodities. Standardization underpinned economic efficiency. Uniform weights, measures, and brick sizes ensured consistency, fairness, and trust in transactions. Imagine a merchant measuring grain on a precisely calibrated weight, confident that buyers and traders from other cities would recognize and honor the system. This level of standardization reflects not only technical skill, but also social cooperation, shared values, and administrative oversight, allowing markets to function smoothly and reliably across vast distances. Craft specialization extended into household and communal production. Families often combined labor, skill, and creativity to contribute to economic life, producing ceramics, textiles, tools, or ornaments for local consumption and trade. Imagine a family weaving cotton threads into cloth, while children learn the craft by observing patterns, tension, and color combinations. Such integration of home, workshop, and market reflects a seamless blending of domestic, economic, and educational life, strengthening both community cohesion and skill transmission. Trade networks connected the Indus Valley to Mesopotamia, the Persian Gulf, and Central Asia, creating a cosmopolitan exchange of goods, technologies, and ideas. Imagine traders navigating rivers, deserts, and coastal routes, exchanging textiles, beads, metals, and pottery for tin, precious stones, and exotic goods. Along these routes, cultural influence spread quietly but profoundly, shaping artistic styles, religious symbols, and technological practices across regions. The Indus civilization was not isolated. It participated actively in a web of interregional interactions that extended its influence far beyond its geographic boundaries. Agriculture, craft, and trade were interdependent, forming a resilient economic ecosystem. Surplus food supported urban populations, artisans produced specialized goods, and merchants distributed products locally and internationally. Imagine this intricate system as a vast network of human activity, with each node, field, workshop, market, or port contributing to the vitality and stability of the civilization. Efficiency, coordination, and innovation allowed the Indus people to sustain dense urban settlements while participating in complex interregional exchanges, demonstrating a level of economic sophistication remarkable for its time. The Indus economy was not merely transactional, it was deeply embedded in social, cultural, and symbolic life. Goods were valued not only for their utility, but for their craftsmanship, aesthetic quality, and symbolic meaning. Imagine a finely carved seal or a polished bead being used in trade, ritual, or as a marker of status, bridging the practical and the symbolic. In this way, commerce reinforced cultural cohesion, transmitted artistic and technological knowledge, and sustained both survival and identity. Through craft specialization, trade, and economic networks, the Indus Valley Civilization created a dynamic and interconnected society, capable of sustaining large urban populations, fostering innovation, and influencing regions far beyond its borders. Imagine the hum of workshops, the clatter of marketplaces, the slow movement of trade caravans, and the quiet authority of seals marking each transaction. These elements together form a complex ecosystem where skill, ingenuity, cooperation, and foresight combine to create prosperity, stability, and cultural richness. A civilization whose economic and social sophistication continues to inspire wonder even millennia later. Amid the precision of urban grids, the bustling energy of markets, and the steady rhythm of agricultural and economic life, The Indus Valley Civilization nurtured a rich tapestry of arts and culture that offered both aesthetic pleasure and spiritual depth. Imagine walking along a quiet lane where a potter is finishing a clay vessel, its surface adorned with intricate geometric designs, spirals, and motifs inspired by nature. These patterns are not mere decoration, they reflect a deep appreciation for symmetry, harmony, and symbolic meaning. Through art, the people expressed identity, communicated values, and celebrated the beauty of daily life. Sculpture and figurines reveal both technical skill and imaginative expression. Small terracotta figurines, often depicting humans, animals, or mythical creatures, were crafted with care, capturing motion, emotion, and detail in miniature form. Imagine a child holding a tiny dancer, fingers tracing the folds of a skirt, or a merchant examining a seated mother figure, appreciating the balance, proportion, and realism. Such creations suggest that art was intimately connected to ritual, domestic life, and personal enjoyment, blending function with aesthetics and storytelling with daily utility. Music and performance likely played an important role in leisure, ritual, and community bonding, though direct evidence is limited. Imagine gatherings where simple instruments, perhaps drums, flutes, or rattles, provided rhythm for dances, songs, or ceremonial occasions. These performances could have marked seasonal cycles, celebrations of harvest, rites of passage, or spiritual observances. Even without written records of melodies, the presence of figurines in dancing postures and depictions of musical instruments hints at the centrality of performance arts in social life, allowing people to express emotion, celebrate community, and participate in cultural continuity. Textiles and adornment were both practical and artistic. Cotton, one of the earliest cultivated fibers in the region, was woven into garments dyed with natural pigments, patterned and decorated with beads or embroidery. Imagine a woman carefully spinning thread, then weaving it into fine cloth, while children observe the process, absorbing both skill and aesthetic sensibility. Clothing like jewelry and body ornaments served not only functional purposes, but also communicated status, identity, and personal taste. Beads of carnelian, faience, and semi-precious stones were strung into necklaces, bracelets, and belts, creating a visual language that was recognized across communities and even in distant trade partners. Entertainment extended into games, recreation, and leisure activities. Although precise rules and structures are mostly lost to time, archaeologists have found dice, small tokens, and gaming boards, suggesting that the Indus people engaged in play, strategy, and social interaction. Imagine children and adults gathering in courtyards or public spaces, moving pieces along marked grids, laughing and discussing strategy, and passing down rules orally. Play was not only a form of relaxation, but also a method of socialization, teaching patience, fairness, and strategic thinking, preparing young members of society for both economic and civic life. Religious and spiritual expression intertwined with arts and culture. Seals, figurines, and motifs suggest veneration of fertility, animals, and possibly proto-deities, indicating that art served both aesthetic and ritual functions. Imagine a family placing a carefully modeled bull or mother goddess figurine near a hearth, symbolizing protection, fertility, and prosperity. Murals, if they existed, and decorated pottery may have served similar purposes, transforming functional objects into carriers of symbolic meaning. Art in this context was not isolated from life. It was woven into daily practice, ritual observance, and communal identity. Architecture itself was a form of artistic expression, seamlessly integrated with function and urban planning. Homes, public buildings, baths, and granaries were constructed with precision, proportion, and aesthetic consideration. Imagine stepping into a courtyard where walls are aligned perfectly, brickwork uniform, and decorative motifs subtly carved on structural elements. The combination of functionality and subtle beauty suggests an appreciation for balance, order, and visual harmony that enhanced daily life, creating spaces that were both practical and inspiring. Storytelling, both oral and visual, likely formed a central part of cultural life. Imagine elders recounting tales of ancestors, heroic deeds, or natural events, while children listen attentively, absorbing lessons, moral guidance, and historical memory. Figurines, seals, and patterns may have served as visual aids, reinforcing narratives and cultural continuity. Through these stories, values were transmitted, imagination nurtured, and community cohesion strengthened, making culture a living, participatory process. Leisure also included participation in communal rituals, seasonal festivals, and family gatherings. Imagine the city coming alive during a harvest festival. Music, dance, shared meals, and decorative displays creating a vibrant sense of togetherness. These occasions reinforced social bonds, provided entertainment, and marked important points in the agricultural, civic, and spiritual calendar. Even amid the routine of daily labor, these moments of collective celebration offered respite, joy, and connection, integrating enjoyment into the rhythms of life. Artistic expression extended into small personal items as well, transforming everyday objects into carriers of beauty and meaning. Beads, seals, pottery, and tools were often decorated with patterns, motifs, or symbolic carvings, creating a culture in which functionality and aesthetic appeal coexisted. Imagine selecting a seal for trade, its surface engraved with a stylized animal, geometric pattern, or symbolic motif, combining practical utility with artistry. The fusion of utility and aesthetics reflects a society that valued creativity, skill, and attention to detail across all dimensions of life. Through arts, culture, entertainment, and leisure, the Indus Valley Civilization reveals a society that balanced labor and enjoyment, ritual and recreation, utility and beauty. Imagine a city alive, not only with work and trade, but with music, laughter, dance, storytelling, and artistic creation, a place where human ingenuity and expression infused everyday life with meaning, connection, and joy. Art was both personal and communal, private and public, functional and symbolic, weaving a cultural fabric that strengthened identity, cohesion, and resilience. The Indus people lived in a world where craft, aesthetics, entertainment, and ritual were interwoven, demonstrating that civilization is measured not only in bricks and canals, but in the richness of its human experience, creativity, and imagination. Alongside the rhythm of daily life, trade, and artistic expression, the spiritual dimension of the Indus Valley Civilization provided a profound sense of order, meaning, and connection to the natural and supernatural world. Religion was intricately woven into urban design, household life, and public spaces, subtly guiding behavior, social norms, and cultural values. Imagine a quiet courtyard where a family places a small terracotta figurine of a mother goddess near the hearth, perhaps offering prayers for fertility, health, or protection. These intimate rituals coexisted with grander civic or communal expressions of devotion, suggesting a society deeply attuned to both personal and collective spirituality. Seals, figurines, and motifs provide insight into the symbolic and religious world of the Indus people. Many seals depict animals, cows, bulls, elephants, tigers, and mythical composite creatures, suggesting reverence for these beings and their symbolic power. Imagine a merchant pressing a seal into soft clay before dispatching goods, simultaneously invoking protection, prosperity, or divine oversight. Such practices imply that commerce, daily work, and ritual were interconnected, with spiritual consciousness embedded seamlessly into everyday activity. The use of animals in iconography reflects both practical and symbolic significance, representing strength, fertility, and cosmic order. The figure of a mother goddess appears repeatedly in terracotta sculptures and figurines, highlighting the importance of fertility, nurture, and abundance in spiritual life. Imagine families surrounding a small altar, offering food, flowers, or symbolic tokens to these figures, acknowledging the cycles of life, growth, and sustenance. This reverence for fertility was not only personal but also societal, connecting household rituals with broader agricultural and communal concerns. Such practices demonstrate an intuitive understanding of the interconnectedness of humans, nature, and the divine. Proto-Shiva-like figures also appear in seals, often depicted seated in meditative postures, sometimes surrounded by animals, emphasizing asceticism, meditation, and a spiritual connection with the natural world. Imagine an individual contemplating life and its cycles, perhaps near a river or in a quiet courtyard, embodying introspection, discipline, and communion with the divine. These images suggest early concepts of transcendence, personal reflection, and ritual practice, laying the groundwork for spiritual ideas that would evolve in later South Asian traditions. The interplay of meditation, symbolic animals, and ritual objects reflects a sophisticated, holistic worldview where inner and outer worlds were deeply interconnected. Ritual bathing and water use were central to spiritual practices. The Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro, a large, meticulously constructed pool, may have served as a site for purification, ceremony, or communal gatherings. Imagine individuals descending the steps, immersing themselves in calm, clear water, experiencing both cleansing and renewal. Water was not merely functional, it was symbolic, embodying purity, transformation, and connection to life-giving forces. The presence of such monumental structures indicates that spiritual life was integrated into urban design, reinforcing communal identity and ritual practice through physical space. Fire, hearths, and offerings were likely important in both household and public rituals. Imagine families lighting small fires to prepare offerings of food, incense, or symbolic materials, while communities gathered to observe larger ceremonies during seasonal or agricultural milestones. These practices linked daily sustenance with spiritual observance, connecting labor, nourishment, and devotion. Rituals reinforced social cohesion, transmitted values, and provided structure to life's uncertainties, blending practicality with symbolic resonance. Burial practices further illuminate spiritual beliefs. Excavated cemeteries reveal carefully positioned bodies, sometimes accompanied by pottery, jewelry, or tools, suggesting concern for the afterlife and the ongoing influence of the deceased on the living. Imagine a family observing burial rites with quiet reverence, placing small tokens with care, acknowledging continuity, memory, and the unseen dimensions of existence. These practices underscore the integration of spiritual awareness into family, social, and civic life, where mortality and memory were recognized as essential aspects of human experience. Seasonal and agricultural rituals were deeply intertwined with spiritual practice. Festivals marking sowing, harvest, or monsoon cycles provided moments for communal gathering, celebration, and thanksgiving. Imagine fields alive with collective activity, songs, and offerings, where gratitude for rain, fertility, and abundance was expressed not only in words, but through shared experience. Rituals reinforced the connection between humans, the land, and cosmic rhythms, creating harmony between labor, leisure, and spiritual awareness. Symbols, motifs, and art were central to ritual expression, embedding meaning into everyday objects. Seals, pottery, beads, and figurines were not only functional or decorative, they also carried spiritual and symbolic resonance. Imagine a potter carefully carving a repeating motif of a sacred animal onto a storage jar, ensuring that each object contributes to protection, prosperity, or communal harmony. The integration of symbolic imagery into daily life reflects a worldview in which spiritual consciousness permeated work, home, trade, and play. Education and transmission of spiritual knowledge occurred through observation, imitation, and participation. Children learned ritual practices, symbolic meanings, and ethical frameworks by watching elders, assisting in ceremonies, and participating in seasonal celebrations. Imagine a young girl helping prepare offerings, learning chants or gestures, and absorbing lessons about life, responsibility, and the cosmos. Spirituality was therefore experiential, relational, and integrated into social life, rather than confined to isolated clergy or formal instruction. Overall, religion and ritual in the Indus Valley Civilization were deeply practical, symbolic, and communal. Spiritual practices guided ethical behavior, reinforced social cohesion, connected people with natural and cosmic cycles, and offered meaning amid the uncertainties of life. Imagine walking through a city where every home, courtyard, and public space reflects attention to ritual, care for purity, and respect for forces beyond human control. The Indus people inhabited a world in which the sacred and the everyday were inseparable, where spiritual consciousness flowed through architecture, art, labor, and leisure, creating a harmonious, resilient, and meaningful society. Their spiritual life was not abstract or esoteric. It was tangible, experienced, and interwoven into the fabric of daily existence, shaping both individual identity and collective culture in ways that continue to inspire curiosity and admiration thousands of years later. Amid the bustling streets, thriving trade, and vibrant culture of the Indus Valley Civilization, a remarkable feature quietly connected people, ideas, and commerce across vast distances: the writing system. Though the Indus script remains undeciphered, its presence on seals, pottery, and other artifacts reveals a sophisticated form of communication, one that facilitated administration, trade, ritual, and identity. Imagine a craftsman pressing a finely carved seal into soft clay, leaving a clear impression of symbols carefully arranged in precise sequences. Each mark carried meaning, whether practical, symbolic, or spiritual, bridging individuals, communities, and cities in a web of shared understanding. Seals were central to this system, serving as identifiers, transactional tools, and markers of authority. Each seal, often made of steatite or other durable materials, was meticulously carved with animal motifs, geometric designs, and lines of symbols that likely conveyed names, titles, or ownership. Imagine a merchant preparing goods for a distant city, imprinting a seal onto clay tags, ensuring authenticity and trust along the trade route. The use of seals exemplifies a society where visual symbols, rather than just spoken words, were fundamental to economic and administrative life, embedding accountability and recognition into tangible objects. The script itself, though undeciphered, appears highly standardized. Symbols recur across cities, from Harappa to Mohenjo-daro, suggesting widespread literacy, or at least a shared symbolic literacy among certain groups. Imagine a scribe or artisan carefully incising tiny, precise characters onto a seal or a piece of pottery, each stroke deliberate and purposeful. This standardization implies coordination, education, and an understanding of symbolic logic, revealing a civilization that valued clarity, consistency, and precision in communication. Communication extended beyond trade and administration to ritual and social identity. Many seals and inscribed objects depict animals, deities, or abstract motifs alongside symbols, suggesting that writing served multiple purposes simultaneously: economic, spiritual, and social. Imagine a seal depicting a seated figure flanked by symbolic animals, the script below encoding a name, title, or invocation. Such objects functioned not merely as administrative tools, but as cultural conveyors, reinforcing communal memory, spiritual beliefs, and social hierarchy through integrated visual and textual language. In addition to seals, inscriptions appear on pottery, weights, and other artifacts, indicating that written communication extended into daily and practical life. Imagine a granary storing measured sacks of grain, each marked with symbols denoting quantity, origin, or intended recipient. This ability to track, record, and organize resources reflects a society with sophisticated economic systems where literacy, symbols, and signs were practical tools that supported urban complexity. Even without full understanding of the script, the patterns of use indicate deliberate thought, planning, and shared conventions across communities. Symbols themselves were rich with meaning, blending the practical with the symbolic. Animals depicted on seals such as bulls, elephants, or mythical composites were not only identifiers, but also likely carried spiritual or cultural significance. Geometric motifs may have encoded numerical, calendrical, or ritual information, while repeated symbols suggest codified communication that transcended spoken language. Imagine a trader examining a seal, understanding instantly the origin, value, and intended purpose of the goods it accompanied, all without uttering a single word. Writing in this sense was both a tool and a medium, simultaneously functional, symbolic, and aesthetic. The system also fostered continuity, memory, and identity. Written symbols could preserve information across time and distance, allowing ideas, transactions, and knowledge to outlive immediate circumstances. Imagine a craftsman in Harappa inscribing a seal that would later accompany goods across rivers and deserts, leaving a trace of city, workshop, and artisan for generations to recognize. Through writing, the civilization bridged temporal and spatial gaps, weaving cohesion into the fabric of urban life, trade, and social organization. Education and transmission of symbolic knowledge were likely essential for maintaining this communication network. Certain individuals, scribes, artisans, or administrators, would have learned the script, mastered its conventions, and applied it consistently. Imagine apprentices observing, practicing, and gradually gaining mastery over symbols, ensuring that expertise was preserved and passed on. Literacy in this context was both a practical skill and a mark of status, tying individuals to economic, religious, and social roles within the broader civilization. Even in absence of decipherment, the evidence suggests that writing supported complex social structures, ritual life, and administrative needs. Imagine a city where granaries, workshops, markets, and religious spaces are all connected through symbols that communicate ownership, quantity, ritual instructions, and social identity. The system is invisible to the untrained eye but omnipresent in daily life, silently coordinating activity, reinforcing norms, and maintaining cohesion across urban and rural landscapes. Communication in the Indus Valley was thus multi-layered, blending visual, symbolic, and material forms. Objects themselves became messages, carrying information, authority, and meaning. Imagine a traveler arriving in a distant settlement, interpreting seals, pottery marks, and standardized weights to understand local conventions, economic agreements, and social hierarchies. The civilization's ability to integrate symbols into trade, ritual, and identity reflects intellectual sophistication, foresight, and an appreciation for the enduring power of recorded information. Ultimately, writing, seals, and symbols were not isolated technical achievements. They were deeply embedded in the social, economic, and spiritual life of the Indus Valley Civilization. Imagine a city where each mark, each seal, each inscribed object contributes to a living network of communication, coordination, and culture, enabling a highly organized society to thrive for centuries. Through these symbols, we glimpse the intellectual and cultural depth of a people who, though silent to us today, mastered the art of transmitting meaning, authority, and memory across time and space, leaving behind traces of their ingenuity and vision that continue to inspire wonder millennia later. Despite centuries of remarkable stability, organization, and cultural richness, the Indus Valley Civilization eventually faced challenges that would reshape its cities and societies. Its decline was neither sudden nor entirely understood, yet clues from archaeology, climate studies, and settlement patterns reveal a combination of environmental, economic, and social pressures that gradually weakened the once thriving urban centers. Imagine a city that had once hummed with activity, where streets were orderly, granaries were full, and workshops buzzed with artisans. Over time, subtle changes in rivers, climate, and resources began to ripple through daily life, quietly altering the rhythms of existence. One significant factor appears to have been environmental change. The mighty rivers that had sustained agriculture, the Indus and its tributaries, were subject to shifting courses, reduced flow, and occasional flooding. Imagine farmers preparing their fields only to find the river that once nourished their crops running lower than expected, or carving new channels across the plains, leaving old irrigation systems dry. Reduced water availability would have strained crop production, disrupted urban supply chains, and increased competition for fertile land, challenging the delicate balance that supported dense urban populations. Even minor variations in monsoon patterns could have had profound ripple effects, altering harvests, food security, and social stability. Soil degradation and overuse may have compounded these environmental pressures. Centuries of intensive agriculture on floodplains, combined with repeated irrigation and settlement, could have led to salinization or nutrient depletion. Imagine the once lush fields yielding less grain, forcing communities to adjust planting schedules, experiment with new crops, or expand into previously uncultivated areas. Such challenges required adaptation and resilience, and while some communities managed to adjust, others may have faced mounting stress that eroded their ability to sustain urban life at previous levels. Trade networks, which had once linked cities across regions and even continents, may have faltered during this period. Imagine caravans encountering disruptions in distant markets or rivers that were once reliable becoming difficult to navigate. With less access to exotic goods, raw materials, and specialized commodities, economic systems may have slowed. Artisans found fewer opportunities, and social hierarchies built on trade and surplus began to strain. Economic contraction, even gradual, could have created pressures on urban governance, social cohesion, and resource allocation. The physical layout and infrastructure of cities, which had been so carefully planned and standardized, may have also become vulnerable over time. Flood damage, erosion, and maintenance challenges could have compromised drains, walls, and granaries, requiring coordinated civic effort to repair. Imagine streets slowly becoming less orderly, waterlogged drainage channels undermining buildings, and granaries failing to protect stored grains from moisture or pests. Maintaining such extensive urban infrastructure demanded both labor and administrative capacity, and environmental stresses may have gradually eroded the civilization's ability to sustain this complex system. Population movements and settlement shifts provide further insight into the decline. Some urban centers show evidence of partial abandonment, with residents relocating to smaller towns or rural areas, perhaps seeking more secure agricultural land or easier access to water. Imagine families leaving once bustling streets, transporting possessions and livestock to safer locations, adapting to a new rhythm of life in less dense settlements. These migrations may have reduced the economic and cultural vibrancy of the cities while spreading knowledge, technology, and culture into smaller communities. Social adaptation, resilience, and creativity likely mitigated some challenges, but the cumulative pressures appear to have gradually reshaped the civilization. Urban centers shrank, trade slowed, and ritual practices may have been concentrated in fewer sites. Imagine courtyards that once hosted communal celebrations now quieter, workshops less active, and ceremonial spaces used less frequently. While the civilization did not vanish immediately, the urban model that had characterized the Indus Valley for centuries slowly faded, leaving behind evidence of once great achievements in planning, technology, and culture. Climate models and geological studies suggest that broader regional shifts, including aridification and changes in river patterns, played a pivotal role. Imagine monsoons arriving later with less intensity, or seasonal floods becoming more unpredictable. These changes would have affected not only agriculture, but also water management, sanitation, and daily life, challenging the resilience of urban infrastructure and prompting communities to explore alternative strategies or relocation. Despite these challenges, the Indus people displayed remarkable adaptability. Artifacts, regional settlements, and evidence of smaller urban clusters suggest that cultural traditions, craft skills, and agricultural knowledge persisted even after the decline of major cities. Imagine dispersed communities maintaining familiar practices, constructing modest dwellings, cultivating crops, and continuing trade on a smaller scale. While the scale of urban life diminished, the knowledge, skills, and cultural memory of the Indus Valley continued to influence later societies in the region. In the end, the decline of the Indus Valley Civilization was likely a complex interplay of environmental stress, economic shifts, population movements, and social adaptation. It was not the result of a single catastrophe, but rather the slow accumulation of pressures that reshaped settlement patterns, urban life, and social structures. Imagine the bustling streets of Harappa or Mohenjo-daro gradually emptying, canals silted, granaries less full, yet knowledge of agriculture, craftsmanship, and trade living on in smaller communities. The civilization left behind a legacy of urban planning, social organization, artistic achievement, and technological innovation that continued to inspire and influence subsequent cultures, a reminder that even in decline, human ingenuity and cultural richness endure. Through this lens, the story of decline is not simply one of loss, but of transformation, resilience, and continuity. While cities eventually faded, the Indus people's innovations in urban planning, trade, craft, and cultural life rippled through time, laying foundations for later civilizations across South Asia. Imagine walking through a once thriving city, seeing echoes of its past grandeur in carefully laid bricks, washed stone seals, and remnants of baths and workshops, each fragment whispering stories of human skill, adaptation, and persistence. The civilization's gradual fade from prominence underscores the delicate balance between environment, economy, and society, reminding us that the story of human achievement is intertwined with both the opportunities and challenges presented by the world we inhabit. As the centuries passed and the great cities of Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and their neighboring settlements slowly emptied and quieted, the story of the Indus Valley Civilization did not end. It transformed. Imagine walking among the remnants of carefully laid streets, observing the washed stones of a marketplace, the silent steps of a long deserted bath, and the faint impressions of seals and pottery that once carried messages, goods, and culture across vast distances. Though the bustling urban life had faded, the knowledge, creativity, and ingenuity of this remarkable civilization endured, leaving an invisible yet powerful legacy that would ripple through time. Urban planning, one of the civilization's most striking achievements, influenced how people thought about organizing communities for centuries to come. Cities had been carefully laid out with precise grids, standardized brick sizes, and sophisticated drainage and water management systems. Imagine future settlements across the Indian subcontinent adopting similar principles, building with attention to sanitation, efficient movement, and harmony with the natural environment. The attention to detail, foresight, and civic planning that characterized the Indus cities became a silent teacher to later societies, demonstrating that human ingenuity can shape spaces to be functional, durable, and beautiful. The technological and craft innovations of the Indus people also left a lasting imprint. Metallurgy, bead-making, pottery, and textile techniques were not lost but adapted and transmitted to successive generations. Imagine a potter in a later settlement replicating patterns observed in old Indus pottery, or a metalworker experimenting with bronze alloys. guided by knowledge passed down or discovered through observation. Each artifact, each technique, carried forward fragments of Indus creativity, ensuring that even as cities declined, their cultural and technological DNA persisted, subtly influencing the evolution of craftsmanship, trade, and daily life. Trade networks, once extending to distant regions like Mesopotamia, were gradually reoriented, yet the principles of commerce, standardization, and long-distance exchange endured. Imagine merchants in later centuries navigating rivers and deserts, using weights, measures, and systems of trust inspired by the Indus model, facilitating exchange not just of goods, but of ideas and culture. The integration of economic activity, standardization, and social coordination became a blueprint for successful trade, demonstrating that effective communication, shared rules, and mutual trust are as vital now as they were thousands of years ago. Art, symbolism, and spiritual ideas continue to resonate. Terracotta figurines, seal motifs, and patterns on pottery inspired new generations of artisans, echoing aesthetic sensibilities, symbolic thinking, and ritual significance. Imagine a young artisan shaping a mother goddess figurine, echoing the forms and gestures of distant ancestors, while incorporating local adaptations. Spiritual consciousness, reverence for nature, and symbolic expression persisted, forming threads of cultural continuity that would later be recognized in South Asian art, religion, and cultural practices. In this way, the Indus Valley Civilization's sense of beauty, meaning, and the sacred quietly endured, shaping the worldview of later societies. The script, though undeciphered, stands as a testament to human ingenuity, abstraction, and communication. Imagine researchers and historians in modern times pondering the symbols on seals, attempting to decode the thoughts, administrative systems, and cultural expressions of people who lived thousands of years ago. The mystery itself inspires respect and curiosity, reminding us that human intelligence, creativity, and the desire to communicate transcend time. Even without full understanding, these symbols connect us across millennia, offering a bridge to the minds and lives of those who walked the streets of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Perhaps most enduring was the civilization's holistic approach to urban life, economy, craft, and social organization. The Indus people integrated work, play, art, spirituality, and administration into a harmonious and functional whole. Imagine societies that followed, consciously or unconsciously, adopting similar principles, valuing sanitation, planning efficiently, fostering craft and trade, integrating spirituality with daily life, and celebrating aesthetic beauty in ordinary objects. The subtle wisdom embedded in Indus life offers timeless lessons on balance, foresight, and the interplay between humans and their environment. As modern explorers, archaeologists, and historians uncover the stones, seals, and artifacts of this ancient world, we gain glimpses of a civilization that combined intellect, creativity, and organization in ways that continue to fascinate. Imagine standing before a restored street, or examining a carved seal, feeling the presence of people who thought deeply about their world, who created functional beauty, and who left traces meant to endure. The Indus Valley Civilization reminds us that human achievement is measured not only in monuments and power, but in the thoughtful integration of daily life, community, and culture. In conclusion, the Indus Valley Civilization was more than an early urban society. It was a profound experiment in human ingenuity, resilience, and harmony. It laid the foundations for urban planning, trade, craft, social organization, and cultural expression that echoed through subsequent generations. Imagine the rivers flowing quietly past the ruins, carrying whispers of innovation, artistry, and community across time. Though the cities themselves faded, the civilization's spirit, its creativity, intelligence, and thoughtful organization remains alive in the echoes of history, inspiring wonder, curiosity, and a deep appreciation for the enduring potential of human societies. As we drift into the quiet of sleep, the story of the Indus Valley lingers gently in the mind, a testament to humanity's ability to build, create, and leave a legacy that transcends time.